The Vorkarian explorers were about to make the biggest mistake of their pathetic alien lives when they decided to open that functioning cryopod holding a human super soldier. They had no idea of the devastation that awaited them. The Vorkarian exploration vessel Voxnar drifted through the void of space, its sensors detecting an anomaly, a derelict human ship, identified as the UESS Endeavour. The ship bore the scars of battle, its hull breached and its crew seemingly lost to the unforgiving vacuum of space. Captain Vox, driven by an insatiable curiosity, assembled a team of 5 explorers to investigate the wreckage. As they boarded the Endeavour, an eerie stillness greeted them. The once vibrant corridors were now tomb-like, the lifeless bodies of the crew floating in the zero-gravity environment. However, a faint energy signature drew them to the medical bay, where they discovered a single cryopod, still functioning amidst the destruction. Inside the pod lay a human male, Lieutenant Raymond Tucker of the elite United Earth Special Forces. Vox, seeing an unprecedented opportunity to study a live human specimen, made the fateful decision to revive Tucker and bring him back to Vorsia Prime for further analysis. Little did the Vorkarians know that Tucker was no ordinary soldier. He was the product of the clandestine Project Titan, a program dedicated to creating genetically enhanced super soldiers capable of single-handedly altering the course of any conflict. As the Voxnar set its course for the Vorkarian homeworld, Tucker's pod began the reanimation process, his enhanced physiology allowing him to stir from his induced slumber far sooner than any normal human. The unsuspecting Vorkarians were about to face a force unlike any they had encountered before. They had unwittingly awakened a being designed for war, a soldier whose very existence was forged in the fires of conflict. The fate of the Voxnar and its crew now hung in the balance, their lives resting in the hands of the human super soldier they had so foolishly revived. Tucker snapped his eyes open, immediately scanning the stark white room. He felt the cool metal of the examination table beneath him, restraints around his wrists and ankles. Strange alien devices with blinking lights were mounted on the walls and ceiling. The door hissed open, and 2 lizard-like aliens in white lab coats entered. Their eyes widened when they saw Tucker awake. "By the gods, he's conscious," Dr. Zox exclaimed. "How is this possible?" "Fascinating," Dr. Krell said, approaching the table. "His physiology must be more resilient than we anticipated. Just imagine what we could learn." Tucker let his body go slack, feigning weakness. The scientists leaned in closer. "We'll need to run a full battery of tests," Dr. Krell said. "Biopsies, stress tests, neural scans. We may never get another opportunity like this." Dr. Zox nodded. "I'll inform the captain immediately. Keep the specimen stable until I return." As Dr. Zox hurried out, Dr. Krell turned to a tray of ominous-looking instruments. Tucker's muscles tensed. It was now or never. With a burst of strength, he snapped the restraints like they were made of paper. Dr. Krell whirled around, but Tucker was already on him. A quick jab to the throat and the scientist crumpled. Tucker stripped off the lab coat and badge, then stepped into the corridor. The ship's layout was foreign, but with his enhanced cognitive abilities, he quickly gleaned the basics of Vorkarian script and technology. A holographic map showed that the Voxnar was docked at a huge military station orbiting an orange gas giant. Tucker gritted his teeth. He had to get off this ship and find a way to contact UESF Command. If the Vorkarians learned the secrets of his bioengineered body, it could spell disaster for humanity. He set off at a brisk pace, the lab coat billowing behind him. The badge granted him access through several checkpoints. Tucker kept his head down, not making eye contact with the Vorkarian crew members he passed. His mind raced as he tried to formulate a plan. He needed a ship, and he needed it fast. The station was sure to have a hangar bay. If he could just commandeer a small craft... An alarm began to blare, and a voice came over the loudspeaker in an urgent alien language. Tucker didn't need a translator to know they were talking about him. Heavy footsteps echoed down the corridor ahead. A squad of Vorkarian soldiers rounded the corner, energy weapons drawn. Tucker smiled grimly. Looks like stealth was no longer an option. Time to show these alien bastards what a human super soldier could do. Tucker sprinted down the corridor, the first squad of soldiers already dispatched. He snatched a tablet from one of the fallen Vorkarians, his enhanced mind quickly deciphering its contents. The armory. That's where he needed to go. He raced through the ship, following the stolen schematics. Bursting into the armory, Tucker's eyes widened. Rows upon rows of advanced weaponry lined the walls, alien tech he had never seen before, but his genetically engineered intellect adapted quickly. He grabbed a sleek rifle and a set of armor, intuiting their functions. Clad in Vorkarian battle gear, Tucker set explosive charges around the armory. If he was going down, he'd take their advantage with him. Now for the control room. Using maintenance shafts to avoid patrols, Tucker climbed toward the heart of the station. Voices drifted from ahead. He peered through a vent and saw Captain Vox reporting to a grizzled Vorkarian in an admiral's uniform. "The human is loose, Admiral Zahn, but we've learned much already. His genetic code, his enhancements, once we have him again, we can create an army of super soldiers. Earth will fall within a cycle." Tucker's blood boiled. So that was their game. Enslave humanity, turn his own DNA against his species. Not on his watch. He dropped from the vent, rifle blazing. Guards fell before they could even draw their weapons. Vox and Zahn whirled, but Tucker was already on them. Zahn reached for his sidearm, but Tucker kicked it away, slamming the Admiral into a console. Vox lunged, a glowing blade in hand. Tucker parried, his armor barely deflecting the blow. They traded strikes, the captain's scaly hide proving resilient, but Tucker's strength and speed were unmatched. A crushing punch and Vox crumpled. Zahn, bleeding from a cut on his brow, slammed his fist onto a button. Alarms wailed. "You'll never escape this station alive, human," he snarled. Tucker silenced him with a vicious headbutt. He glanced at the control panel, locating the hangar. Time to fly. Sprinting through the corridors, Tucker heard the thud of boots behind him. Soldiers, dozens of them. Energy bolts sizzled past his head. He returned fire, not breaking stride. He burst into the hangar, a sleek fighter already in his sights. Vorkarian troops poured in behind him, laying down a hail of suppressing fire. Tucker zigzagged, his enhanced reflexes guiding him through the deadly storm. Vaulting into the cockpit, Tucker sealed the canopy. His hands flew over the controls, systems coming online. The fighter lurched, engines roaring to life. Tucker punched the thrusters, the force slamming him back in his seat. The fighter tore out of the hangar, pulse cannons shredding the bay doors. Tucker wrenched the controls, narrowly evading the defensive batteries that opened up from the station's surface. Weaving through the storm of anti-aircraft fire, Tucker plotted a course for Earth, stars streaking past his canopy. He had to warn them, had to prepare humanity for the fight to come. This was only the beginning. The stolen Vorkarian transport shuddered as it docked with the Bastion. Tucker stepped out, the rescued colonists following close behind. Armed guards aimed weapons but held fire as Colonel Reeves strode forward. "Lieutenant Raymond Tucker, I thought you were dead," Reeves said, eyes narrowed. "You better have a damn good explanation for this." Tucker tossed a Vorkarian pulse rifle at Reeves's feet. "The Vorkarians, they're coming, Colonel, and they want to turn humanity into weapons." Reeves examined the rifle, then looked to the haggard colonists. "Get these people to the infirmary, Tucker with me." In the command center, Tucker laid out everything. His capture, the impending invasion, the Vorkarians' plans for conquest and subjugation. He slid a data drive across the table. "That's everything I could pull from their systems. Ship schematics, troop numbers, invasion plans." Reeves plugged in the drive, his face growing grim as he scanned the data. "This is God help us. We need to alert Earth, get every ship and soldier mobilized yesterday." "I have an idea," Tucker said. "Their tech, their tactics, they're advanced but not invincible. If we can learn to fight like them, we stand a chance." Reeves nodded slowly. "You train them. Our best, our brightest, forge them into a new kind of soldier." And so the Vanguard was born. Tucker and a hand-picked team of the Bastion's finest, drilling day and night with captured Vorkarian weapons and equipment. They studied the enemy's strategies, learned their weaknesses, became the thing the Vorkarians would learn to fear. Weeks turned to months. The vanguard grew, strike teams spreading to other human outposts, and when the Vorkarian scouts came probing, testing human defenses, they found themselves ambushed, outsmarted, outfought at every turn. "Bring me their commanders alive," Tucker ordered as his team stormed another Vorkarian ship. "I want them to deliver a message." The bridge was pandemonium, alarms blaring, consoles smoking. Tucker stalked through the chaos, his rifle bucking as he put down the last defenders. He grabbed the Vorkarian captain by the throat, lifting him one-handed. "I'll tell your masters," Tucker growled, "that humanity is not prey, we are predators, and we're coming for them." He hurled the captain into an escape pod and punched the eject button. As the pod streaked away, Tucker turned to his team. "Set the charges. Let's send these bastards a real message." Minutes later, the Vorkarian ship bloomed into a miniature sun, a funeral pyre lighting the night. On the Bastion's bridge, Reeves watched the explosion fade. "You think they'll get the message?" he asked. Tucker's eyes were cold as he stared out at the stars. "They will, but this is just the beginning. The real war is coming, and we'll be ready." The Bastion's command center buzzed with activity as reports flooded in from across human space. Vorkarian warships had breached the outer defenses, their invasion fleets bearing down on key strategic targets. Earth's leaders, their faces grim on the view screens, turned to the man who had become humanity's best hope. "Captain Raymond Tucker," the president said, her voice heavy with the weight of billions of lives. "You and your vanguard have proven invaluable in the fight against the Vorkarians, but now we face our darkest hour. We need you to lead the charge once more." Tucker nodded, his eyes hard as steel. "Task Force Titan is ready, Madam President. We'll show these alien bastards what happens when you mess with humanity." As Tucker strode through the Bastion's hangar bay, technicians swarmed over the dropships and fighters of Task Force Titan. The soldiers snapped to attention as he passed, their armor gleaming with the sheen of reverse-engineered Vorkarian alloys. "Listen up, Titans," Tucker barked, his voice carrying over the thrum of engines. "We're heading to Proxima Centauri B. The Vorkarians have landed in force, and it's up to us to kick them off our doorstep. This won't be easy. It'll be the hardest fight of your lives. But I know each and every one of you has the guts and the skill to see it through. Let's give 'em hell." A roar of approval echoed through the hangar as the Titans boarded their ships. Tucker settled into the command chair of the flagship, the UESS Retribution, his fingers flying over the controls. The journey to Proxima Centauri B was tense, the task force navigating through a gauntlet of Vorkarian patrols and minefields. But Tucker's tactical acumen and the skill of his pilots saw them through, the Retribution touching down on the planet's battle-scarred surface. The scene that greeted them was one of chaos and destruction. Vorkarian war machines stalked through the ruins of human settlements, their weapons spitting plasma and searing lasers. Human defenders, outnumbered and outgunned, fought desperately to hold the line. Tucker led the charge, his rifle barking as he stormed into the fray. The Titans followed, their advanced weaponry cutting swathes through the Vorkarian ranks. Tucker moved like a force of nature, his enhanced reflexes and strength allowing him to dodge incoming fire and dispatch enemies with brutal efficiency. In the heart of the battle, Tucker came face to face with a squad of Vorkarian soldiers, their armor bearing the distinctive markings of the Apex, the genetically enhanced warriors created from his own stolen DNA. They moved with terrifying speed and precision, their blows shaking the earth. But Tucker was faster, stronger, his every move guided by a lifetime of training and the fire of human determination. He engaged the Apex in a whirlwind of close-quarters combat, his fists and feet striking with the force of hammers. One by one the Apex fell, their augmented bodies no match for the fury of humanity's champion. But as the last soldier crumpled, the ground shook with the tread of heavy footsteps. A massive figure loomed out of the smoke, its armor a bristling shell of spikes and plates. The behemoth, the most feared of the apex, had come to claim Tucker's head. With a roar that shook the battlefield, the behemoth charged, its fists crackling with disruptive energy. Tucker met the charge head-on, the clash of their bodies sending shockwaves rippling through the air. They traded blows that would have shattered stone, their armor sparking and cracking under the onslaught. Tucker ducked and weaved, his mind racing as he sought a weakness in the behemoth's defenses. There, a hairline fracture in the armor plating just below the collar. Tucker lunged, his fist driving forward with all the strength he could muster. Tucker's fist slammed into the behemoth's weakened collar, his armored knuckles tearing through metal, flesh and bone. The monstrous Vorkarian convulsed, then slumped, its lifeless bulk crashing to the war-torn ground. Tucker staggered back, his armor sparking and dented, blood seeping from a dozen wounds. He raised a fist in weary triumph as the last of the apex fell before the guns of his titans. But the victory was short-lived. A searing pain lanced through Tucker's side, and he looked down to see a jagged shard of the behemoth's armor embedded in his abdomen, punching through his compromised battlesuit. He crumpled, his vision swimming. "Captain's down," a voice shouted, and then his titans were there, dragging him to the evac shuttle as darkness claimed him. Tucker awoke to the sterile white of a hospital room, his body a patchwork of bandages and tubes. Colonel Reeves stood at his bedside, his face grim. "Earth is under attack," Reeves said without preamble. "The Vorkarians hit us out of nowhere, troops landing in every major city. Our forces are overwhelmed." Reeves shook his head. "You're in no condition to fight, Captain. You nearly died on Proxima B." "You think that matters now?" Tucker snarled, ripping out his IVs. "Earth needs every soldier it has, and I'm the best damn soldier we've got." Against medical advice, against all sanity, Tucker suited up, his armor hiding the bulk of his bandages. He gathered Task Force Titan, every warrior marked by the scars of 100 battles. "This is it, Titans," he growled. "This is what we've trained for. The Vorkarians think they can take our home. It's time to show them how wrong they are." Their target was the Vorkarian command ship, a monstrous dreadnought hovering in low Earth orbit. From its bridge, the Vorkarian generals directed their invasion, coordinating the assault on humanity's home. Getting aboard was a suicide mission. The ship was a fortress, bristling with enough firepower to level a continent, but the Titans had a plan. Hijacking a Vorkarian dropship, they approached the dreadnought, broadcasting captured IFF codes. The dreadnought's defenses held fire unsuspecting. As soon as they were within range, Tucker and his team blew the dropship's airlock, EVA suits propelling them across the gulf of space. They latched onto the dreadnought's hull like armored ticks, mag boots adhering to the alien metal. Cutting through the hull was arduous, the Vorkarian alloy resisting even their enhanced plasma torches. But inch by painstaking inch, they carved their way inside, into the belly of the beast. Alarms blared as the Titans breached the ship's interior, Vorkarian soldiers swarming to meet them. But these were no ordinary troopers. They were the ship's apex guard, the elite of the elite. The corridors became a blood-soaked abattoir, the Titans fighting for every inch. Tucker was a man possessed, his rifle and blade claiming a life with every stride. Pain was a distant thing, drowned out by the drumbeat of battle rage in his skull. They fought their way to the bridge, a trail of Vorkarian dead marking their passage. The blast doors were meters thick, but they hadn't been built to withstand Tucker's fury. He ripped them open with his bare hands, the metal shrieking in protest. The bridge was chaos. Vorkarian officers scrambled for weapons as the Titans stormed in, cutting them down in sprays of blood and sparks. In the center of it all stood Admiral Zahn, his face a mask of shock and rage. "You!" he hissed, recognition dawning. "The human from the station, you should be dead." "I'm hard to kill," Tucker replied, leveling his rifle. "You're about to learn that the hard way." Zahn lunged, a crackling energy blade leaping into his hand. He was faster than any Vorkarian Tucker had faced before. The blade slashed, and Tucker's rifle fell away in molten pieces. They crashed together, fists and feet blurring in a deadly dance. Zahn was strong, his blows cracking Tucker's armor, reopening half-healed wounds. But Tucker was stronger, his rage and desperation fueling him beyond the limits of flesh. A final thunderous blow and Zahn toppled, his skull caved in. Tucker stood over his body, chest heaving, blood dripping from his gauntlets. But there was no time for respite. As Tucker turned to his titans, a holographic display flickered to life, a Vorkarian scientist's face leering down at them. "Congratulations, Captain Tucker," the scientist hissed. "You've killed our leadership, but you're too late. Our real weapon is already deployed. A virus, engineered from your own genetic code. It's spreading across your planet now, targeting every human who shares your enhancements. You are now the instrument of your own species' destruction." Tucker stared at the display, horror dawning as the scientist's words sank in. The Vorkarians hadn't been trying to make super soldiers. They'd been making a doomsday weapon, and he was the key. Every Titan, every soldier who shared his genes was now a walking plague-bearer, a threat to the very people they had sworn to protect. Tucker's mind raced, despair and determination warring within him. He had led his people to victory, but at what cost? What good was winning the battle if he lost the war for humanity's very survival? There had to be a way, some desperate gambit he hadn't seen yet, because if there wasn't, then all the blood, all the sacrifice, had been for nothing. He looked to his titans, saw his own grim resolve mirrored in their eyes. They would fight on even if every step brought them closer to humanity's extinction, because that's what soldiers did. That's what heroes did. Tucker activated his comm, his words a promise and a prayer. "This is Captain Tucker to Earth Command. The Vorkarian leadership is dead. But we have a new mission. We have to find a cure before it's too late. For all of us." The bitter Antarctic wind howled across the desolate landscape, whipping snow and ice against the abandoned military base that now served as a makeshift quarantine facility for Tucker and the remaining members of Task Force Titan. Inside the base's cramped, poorly heated confines, the soldiers worked tirelessly, poring over data stolen from the Vorkarians, desperately searching for a way to counteract the virus that now threatened to wipe out humanity. Tucker stood hunched over a workbench, his eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep, his hands trembling from a combination of cold, exhaustion, and the ever-present fear that they might already be too late. He looked up as Sergeant Hawkins, his second-in-command, approached, a grim expression on her face. "Report," Tucker said, his voice hoarse. "It's not good, sir," Hawkins replied. "The Vorkarians have overrun most of North America. Europe is hanging on by a thread. And the virus—" She trailed off, shaking her head. Tucker slammed his fist on the workbench, sending tools and equipment clattering to the floor. "We're running out of time. We need a breakthrough, and we need it now." Just then, a comm unit on the wall crackled to life. "Captain Tucker," a voice said, distorted by static. "We're receiving a transmission from Vorkarian Command. They're demanding to speak with you." Tucker and Hawkins exchanged a glance. Then Tucker strode over to the comm unit, his jaw set. "Put them through." The screen flickered, then resolved into the image of a Vorkarian general, his scaly face twisted into a sneer. "Captain Tucker," the general said, his voice dripping with contempt. "I am General Vrax. I have a proposition for you." Tucker's eyes narrowed. "I'm listening." "Surrender yourself and your remaining soldiers to us," Vrax said. "In exchange, we will agree to a temporary ceasefire. Your species will have a brief respite from our onslaught." Tucker's mind raced. He knew it was a trap, but he also knew that they were out of options. They needed more time, and if sacrificing himself and his team could buy that time— "We shall meet at coordinates I provide," Vrax continued. "You will come unarmed and unarmored. Any attempt at deception, and the ceasefire will be void." Tucker took a deep breath. "Agreed." As the transmission ended, Hawkins grabbed his arm. "Sir, you can't seriously be considering this. It's suicide." "We don't have a choice," Tucker replied, shaking off her grip. "Assemble the team." Minutes later, the remaining members of Task Force Titan stood before Tucker, their faces grim but determined. Listen up, Tucker said. I know I'm asking a lot of you, but this is our last chance. While the Vorkarians are focused on us, the rest of humanity will have a chance to regroup, to find a way to fight back. He paused, looking at each soldier in turn. But we're not going down without a fight. We've got one last mission. Intel suggests the Vorkarians have a research facility in the Amazon rainforest. That's where they're developing the virus. If we can infiltrate that facility, steal their data, we might be able to find a cure. The soldiers nodded, a glimmer of hope in their eyes. It won't be easy, Tucker continued. In fact, it's probably a one-way trip. But if we can give humanity a fighting chance, then it will all be worth it. As the team prepared for their final mission, loading weapons and checking equipment, Tucker pulled Hawkins aside. Sarah, he said, using her first name for the first time, if I don't make it back... Hawkins shook her head. Don't say it. We're all coming back. We have to. But as they boarded the transport that would take them to the rendezvous point, Tucker couldn't shake the feeling that he was leading his team to their deaths. The Amazon rainforest was a green hell, the air thick with humidity, and the constant drone of insects. Tucker and his team moved through the undergrowth like ghosts, their Vorkarian-derived active camouflage rendering them nearly invisible. They had been trudging through the jungle for hours, following the coordinates provided by Vrax. Tucker knew they were walking into an ambush, but they had no choice. The research facility was their only hope. Suddenly the jungle exploded with plasma fire. Apex soldiers, their armor painted in the mottled greens and browns of the rainforest, materialized out of the foliage, their weapons blazing. Tucker's team returned fire, their own weapons spitting streams of superheated plasma, but they were outgunned and outmaneuvered, the Apex soldiers moving with a speed and precision that was terrifying to behold. One by one, Tucker's soldiers fell, their armor melted, and their bodies charred by the relentless plasma fire. Tucker fought like a man possessed, his rifle and his fists claiming Apex lives with every desperate move. But it wasn't enough. A plasma bolt took him in the shoulder, spinning him around. Another seared across his thigh, sending him to his knees. As he struggled to rise, a massive figure emerged from the jungle, towering over the Apex soldiers. It was a Vorkarian, but unlike any Tucker had ever seen. It was huge, its armor a gleaming black, its eyes glowing with a malevolent red light. "Captain Tucker," the figure said, its voice a deep metallic rumble, "I am Omega, your end." Tucker forced himself to his feet, his rifle raised. "Not yet," he growled. "Not while I still breathe." Omega laughed, the sound like the tolling of a funeral bell. Then it charged, moving with a speed that belied its size. Tucker fired, his rifle on full auto, the plasma bolts splattering against Omega's armor like rain. But the massive Vorkarian didn't even slow down. It crashed into Tucker, sending him flying. He slammed into a tree, feeling ribs crack, his rifle falling from his grasp. "Your struggle is over," Omega said. "Your species is finished." Tucker clawed at the hand around his throat, his vision starting to tunnel. But then, out of the corner of his eye, he saw movement. It was Hawkins, badly wounded but still fighting. She had a Vorkarian plasma grenade in her hand. With a cry of defiance, she charged at Omega, slamming the grenade onto its back. The explosion was deafening. Omega roared in pain, dropping Tucker. The captain hit the ground hard, gasping for breath. Hawkins was lying nearby, her armor shattered, her body broken. But she was smiling. "Go," she whispered, "and finish the mission." Tucker crawled to her, taking her hand. "I will," he promised, "I swear it." Then he forced himself to his feet, staggering towards the research facility, leaving the bodies of his team behind. Tucker and Sergeant Reyes burst into the research facility, plasma rifles blazing. Vorkarian scientists scattered, some reaching for weapons, others cowering behind overturned tables. Tucker fired with cold precision, each shot finding its mark. At last they reached the main lab, a cavernous space filled with bubbling tanks and humming machinery. Tucker rushed to the central computer, his fingers flying over the alien keys. "I've got it," He shouted over the blaring alarms. "The cure data and... Oh God, Reyes, you need to see this." "They were trying to combine our species," Tucker said, his voice thick with disgust. "Create hybrids loyal to them." A hiss from behind. They spun, weapons ready. The Omega stood in the doorway, flanked by Apex soldiers. It was huge, a nightmarish fusion of human and Vorkarian, its skin a mottled grey, its eyes burning red. The battle was brutal, close quarters, a whirlwind of striking limbs and flashing blades. Tucker fought like a demon, but there were too many. A cry abruptly cut off. Tucker saw Reyes fall, a bloody hole in her chest. Rage and grief surged through him. He launched himself at the Omega, tackling it to the ground. They rolled across the floor, snarling, clawing, pounding. The Omega was stronger, but Tucker was faster, driven by a lifetime of training and a fury that bordered on madness. He grabbed a jagged shard of metal, stabbed it into the Omega's eye. The creature howled, black blood spraying. Tucker staggered to his feet, grabbed the data drive. He ran, leaving the carnage behind, alarms wailing in his wake. The rainforest was a green maze alive with danger. Tucker crashed through the undergrowth, Vorkarian patrols on his heels. Plasma bolts sizzled past his head, igniting the foliage. A shout ahead. Human voices. Tucker burst into a clearing, found himself face to face with a group of haggard resistance fighters. "Captain Tucker," their leader asked, lowering his rifle, "we thought you were dead." "Not yet," Tucker growled, "but I will be if we don't move. Extraction point 2 clicks north." They moved as one, fighters flowing through the jungle like ghosts. They ambushed Vorkarian patrols, fading back into the green embrace of the rainforest before the enemy could regroup. The extraction point, a battered transport, engines idling. Tucker and the fighters piled in, plasma bolts peppering the hull as the ship clawed for the sky. Antarctica, the abandoned base. Tucker stumbled from the transport, data drive clutched in his bloody fist. Scientists swarmed around him, taking the drive, asking a barrage of questions. Tucker ignored them all, limping towards the medbay. There was still a war to fight, a species to save, and now, thanks to the sacrifice of his team, they had a chance. The cure. It was the key to everything, and Tucker would make sure it was used, even if he had to fight through the entire Vorkarian Empire to do it. In the Antarctic base's cramped laboratory, the human scientists worked feverishly, the stolen Vorkarian data scrolling across their screens. They were close, so close to synthesizing a cure for the virus that had ravaged Earth. Tucker, his wounds bandaged but far from healed, limped into the lab. "How much longer?" he asked, his voice hoarse. Dr. Emilia Ramos, the lead scientist, looked up from her workstation. "Hours, maybe less. We're running the final simulations now." Tucker nodded, his jaw tight. Every minute counted. Every minute the cure was delayed, more lives were lost. Suddenly the base's alarms blared, the sound deafening in the confined space. Tucker's comm crackled to life. "Captain Tucker, this is Colonel Reeves. We have a situation." Tucker's heart sank. He knew that tone, the tone of a man about to deliver news that could shatter worlds. "Go ahead, Colonel." "The Vorkarians have launched a full-scale assault on our remaining strongholds. They're coming for the Antarctic base. They know we have the cure." Tucker's fists clenched. "How long do we have?" "Minutes. They're already in the atmosphere." Tucker turned to the scientists, his eyes hard. "We're out of time. Initiate the evacuation protocol. Get that cure data to the safe house." "It'll have to do. It's all we've got." Tucker turned to the soldiers in the room, men and women who had fought beside him through hell and back. "You all know the drill. Defend this base. Buy the scientists time." They nodded, grim determination etched on their faces. They knew the odds. They knew this was likely a one-way trip, but they were ready to lay down their lives for a chance, however slim, to save humanity. Tucker strode to the armory, ignoring the pain lancing through his body with every step. He armed himself, grenades, rifles, spare ammo. The familiar weight of the weapons was a cold comfort. The ground shook, dust raining from the ceiling. The Vorkarians had breached the perimeter. It had begun. Tucker raced through the base's corridors, the sounds of battle growing louder with each passing second. He burst into the central chamber, a vast, cavernous space, and his blood ran cold. The Vorkarians were everywhere, their weapons flashing, their war cries echoing off the metal walls, and at their head, striding through the chaos like a harbinger of death, was a figure Tucker had hoped never to see again. The Alpha, the pinnacle of Vorkarian genetic engineering, a fusion of human and alien DNA, stood nearly 8 feet tall, its armor a glistening black, its eyes burning with a malevolent red light. It wielded a massive energy cannon, the weapon spitting bolts of plasma that vaporized human soldiers where they stood. Tucker charged, a battle cry tearing from his throat. The Alpha turned, its eyes locking onto Tucker. It raised its cannon, but Tucker was faster. He dodged the plasma bolt and slammed into the Alpha, the impact sending them both crashing to the ground. They grappled, rolling across the blood-slicked floor. The Alpha was stronger, faster, but Tucker was fueled by desperation, by the knowledge that if he failed here, all was lost. He managed to wrap his hands around the Alpha's throat, squeezing with all his might. The Alpha thrashed, its claws raking across Tucker's armor, leaving deep, jagged furrows. Tucker's vision blurred, his strength waning, but he held on, pouring every last ounce of his will into his grip. The Alpha's struggles began to weaken, its eyes dimming. And then, with a final sickening crunch, it was over. The Alpha went limp, its neck shattered. Tucker staggered to his feet, his breath coming in ragged gasps. But there was no time to rest. The base's defenders were falling, the Vorkarians pressing their advantage. Tucker fought on, his rifle blazing, his fists and feet striking out at any alien that came within reach. But it wasn't enough. The Vorkarians kept coming, an endless tide of claws and fangs and plasma. Tucker's armor was in tatters, his body a map of wounds. And then he saw it, a Vorkarian dropship hovering above a gaping hole in the base's roof. The scientists, huddled together, their data drives clutched to their chests, were being herded aboard by Vorkarian soldiers. Tucker ran, ignoring the pain, ignoring the plasma bolt sizzling past his head. He had to reach them, had to save the cure. But he was too late. The dropship's hatch slammed shut and it rocketed into the sky, disappearing into the swirling Antarctic clouds. Tucker fell to his knees, his rifle slipping from his numb fingers. Around him, the last of the base's defenders fell, cut down by Vorkarian plasma. And then the aliens were upon him, their claws digging into his flesh, their fists slamming into his face. He fought back, but it was a losing battle. There were too many, and he was already so far gone. Darkness closed in, and Tucker knew no more. He awoke to pain, to the cold metal of a Vorkarian laboratory table beneath his ravaged body. He was strapped down, his armor gone, his wounds untreated. A Vorkarian scientist loomed over him, its eyes glinting with a cruel, calculating light. "Welcome back, Captain Tucker," it hissed. "We have so much to learn from you." But as Tucker stared out at the infinite expanse of space, he felt a flicker of something deep within his chest. Not hope, not exactly, but a grim, unyielding determination. Humanity would endure, it would adapt, it would overcome, and one day, whether it took years or decades or centuries, they would return to the stars. They would find the Vorkarians, and they would make them pay for every life taken, every world burned. This fight was far from over. It had only just begun. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.